Imagine a world where one decision could change the balance of power forever. A single weapon, capable of destroying an entire city in seconds. Now imagine that weapon appearing in one of the most volatile regions on Earth, the Middle East. For decades, one question has haunted world leaders. What happens if Iran gets a nuclear bomb? The United States says it would be a global disaster. Iran says it is simply defending itself. And caught in the middle of this dangerous standoff is the entire world. Because if diplomacy fails, the next chapter might not be negotiations. It might be war. When America and Iran were friends, most people think the United States and Iran have always been enemies. But that's not true. Before 1979, Iran was actually one of America's closest allies in the Middle East. At that time, Iran was ruled by a king known as the Shah. The Shah maintained strong relations with Washington. America helped Iran build its military, modernize its economy, and even start its early nuclear program. Yes, Iran's nuclear program originally began with American support. But everything changed in 1979. A massive revolution erupted across Iran. Millions of people took to the streets against the Shah's government. Eventually, the Shah was overthrown, and a new Islamic government came to power. Almost overnight, Iran transformed from a Western ally into one of America's biggest rivals. The tension exploded when Iranian students stormed the US Embassy in Tehran. They took 52 American diplomats hostage for 444 days. The crisis shocked the world and permanently destroyed relations between the two countries. From that moment on, distrust between Washington and Tehran only grew deeper. The shadow of war. Just 1 year after the revolution, another disaster struck Iran. In 1980, neighboring Iraq invaded the country. The conflict became one of the longest and bloodiest wars in modern Middle Eastern history. The Iran-Iraq War lasted 8 brutal years. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers and civilians died. Cities were bombed. And Iraq even used chemical weapons on Iranian troops. For Iran, the war left a permanent psychological scar. Many Iranian leaders came to believe one thing: if a country is weak, it becomes a target. And in the dangerous politics of the Middle East, survival often depends on power. That belief would later shape Iran's nuclear ambitions. The nuclear program today, Iran insists its nuclear program is peaceful. According to Tehran, the goal is simple: produce nuclear energy for electricity and scientific research. Many countries operate nuclear power plants, but nuclear technology has a dark side. The same technology used to generate electricity can also be used to create nuclear weapons. And that's where the controversy begins. To build a nuclear bomb, uranium must be enriched to extremely high levels. For civilian nuclear power, enrichment levels are usually around 3 to 5%. But weapons-grade uranium requires enrichment close to 90%. Over the past decade, international inspectors discovered that Iran had been enriching uranium far beyond normal civilian levels. This alarmed governments around the world, because once a country reaches high enrichment levels, the step toward building a nuclear bomb becomes much smaller. Why America is worried for the United States. The fear is not just about nuclear technology, it's about the region where Iran sits. The Middle East is already one of the most politically unstable regions on Earth. If Iran developed nuclear weapons, several major consequences could follow. First, it could threaten America's closest ally in the region, Israel. Israel views a nuclear Iran as an existential danger. Second, other countries might try to build their own nuclear weapons. Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and possibly others. This could trigger a nuclear arms race across the Middle East. A region already filled with conflict could suddenly become filled with nuclear weapons. And history shows that the more nuclear weapons exist, the greater the risk of catastrophic war. That is why American leaders across multiple administrations, both Republican and Democrat, have all shared the same goal: prevent Iran from becoming a nuclear weapons state. Iran's argument, but Iran sees the situation very differently. Iranian leaders argue that their country is surrounded by powerful enemies. American military bases exist across the region. Israel possesses nuclear weapons. Pakistan and India both have nuclear arsenals. Even North Korea has nuclear weapons. So Iran asks a simple question: why should we remain defenseless? Some Iranian strategists believe nuclear capability acts as a deterrent. In other words, if a country has nuclear weapons, enemies will think twice before attacking it. Supporters of this idea often point to North Korea. Despite international tensions, no country has attempted a full invasion, because the risks are simply too high. Iran may be seeking the same kind of protection. How close is Iran? This is where the situation becomes extremely serious. Experts say Iran has already developed much of the technology required for nuclear weapons. It has advanced centrifuges, large stockpiles of enriched uranium, and highly fortified underground facilities. Some analysts believe Iran could produce enough weapons-grade material for a nuclear bomb within weeks. But building an actual deployable weapon would still take longer. That means Iran may currently exist in what experts call a threshold state, a country that has the capability to build a nuclear weapon quickly, but has not officially done so. This strategy allows Iran to maintain leverage without crossing the final line. The Israel factor: if Iran ever moves toward building an actual nuclear bomb, one country might act immediately: Israel. For decades, Israeli leaders have warned they will never allow Iran to obtain nuclear weapons. Israel has already conducted similar strikes in the past. In 1981, Israel destroyed Iraq's nuclear reactor in a surprise airstrike. And in 2007, it reportedly carried out another operation against a nuclear facility in Syria. Many analysts believe Israel could attempt a similar strike on Iran. But Iran's nuclear facilities are far larger, more advanced, and heavily protected. Any attack could ignite a massive regional war. Iran could respond with missiles. Proxy groups across the Middle East could become involved. And the United States might eventually be pulled into the conflict. Final chapter: the future. So where does the world go from here? Diplomacy has repeatedly attempted to solve the crisis. Agreements have been signed. Sanctions have been imposed. Negotiations have collapsed. And tensions continue to rise. For now, Iran remains just short of becoming a nuclear weapons state. But the line between capability and reality is becoming thinner every year. The future of the Middle East may depend on whether that line is ever crossed. Because once a new nuclear power emerges, history shows that the world never quite returns to the way it was before. And the question that has haunted global politics for decades will finally be answered. What happens when Iran goes nuclear? Only time will tell.